Hello everyone, I am back finally with my Q&A video. I have a lot of questions to get through, some of them going as far back as almost a year to when I did just after I did my previous Q&A video, and I was going to get to one around WrestleMania season, didn't happen, took a 4-month break, and so now I'm playing catch up, so I've got a lot of questions to go through. Thank you to everybody who sent over their questions. This is probably going to be a very long-winded video, and I apologize for that, but like I said, I have a lot to get over. But before I get into your questions, there are some current events in professional wrestling that I do want to comment on, so I'll go ahead and kind of blast through those real quick. First of all, John Cena, who is on his retirement tour, won the Intercontinental title this week on Raw. That's fine, I guess. I'm still not watching WWE, so I didn't see any of it, but it's the big thing that everyone's saying. It's like John Cena gets to retire as a Grand Slam champion, and I'm like, does it really matter? The problem is there's so many belts now and they change hands so frequently that such a accomplishment, like it feels like Cena didn't get the IC title more as like an oversight, not because there was some kind of gap in his career where it was missing. It was just like, oh, the one belt out of the other 47 that are floating around, Cena didn't get, so let's just put it on him. It's just like it. I don't know. It's like I remember when Brett became a Triple Crown champion. And that was kind of a big deal because no one had ever done that. And back then, the Triple Crown was the world title, IC title, and tag titles. And then Diesel won all 3 belts in a year, and that was seen as kind of a big deal because it's like, oh my God, this guy just kind of tore through everybody. And when Brett went to WCW, he won the world title, the US title, and the tag titles. He was partnered with Goldberg briefly. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, he's the only one to win the world title, the mid-card title, and the tag title from both major companies, WWF and WCW. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure he was the only one that did. And that was kind of a big deal. It was like, whoa, he's going across 2 different companies and doing that. But now it's like, again, there's 2 world titles floating around. There's 2 sets of tag titles floating around. There's a US belt, an IC belt, and, other titles have come and gone. It's like, what even constitutes a Grand Slam champion anymore? I don't know. Like when Shawn became the first Grand Slam champion, it's like, all right, there's 4 belts. He was the first one to win all 4 major titles. Okay, got it. Now it's like, I don't even know what constitutes a Grand Slam champion anymore because it's, again, everything is just, there's too many belts. And I'm going to get into that when I talk about AEW a little bit. But, so yeah, I didn't really care all that much. And then it's like, okay, so to determine Cena's retirement match, they're holding a tournament to pick his last opponent. I don't care. Like, I don't care. Again, like, Cena was never my guy. I was never a big Cena fan. I wasn't a child when he had his peak and his big run or anything. So I never became a Cena fan, so I'm not overly invested in checking out his retirement match. I would if there was some kind of a hot angle or hot story going into it like they had with the heel turn, but they botched that every which way till Sunday, so now I don't care. And it's like, I'm not going to watch his retirement match because it's not enough of an attraction for me personally to want to check it out. And I'm just like, I'm good. I'm good. Y'all enjoy it. Y'all have fun. You want to have one last ride with John Cena? Go on and do it. I'm not going to spoil your fun. For me personally, I'm just not overly invested in it. Another WWE thing, Jey Uso, who recently lost a World Heavyweight title match to CM Punk to, fill the vacancy of the World Heavyweight title because that belt needs to exist for some reason. One thing I noticed about this match, again, I didn't see the match, but a lot of the clips from the match were going around, and a little bit of 1996 Shawn Michaels was coming out in CM Punk. A little bit of frustration was showing in how he reacted to some of Jey Uso's reactions and how he sold and bumped and how he took things and some of those like kind of sloppier moments in the match. And I was looking at it and I was like, and I've seen Jay have a couple of those, again, just based on clips that are floating around online. And I'm not somebody who was really crapping on Jey Uso when he won the Royal Rumble and they put the belt on him at WrestleMania. I was like, look, I don't even think the World Heavyweight title should exist in the first place. But if you have to fill that spot, give it to the guy who, got over with the audience and the fans love the catchphrase. They love the entrance and all that other stuff. It's like, fine, whatever. I don't care. And hey, at least they gave it to somebody that the fans like. That's, what more could you ask? But with all these clips that I've been seeing floating around and all these, this online negative reaction to Jey Uso getting worse as time has gone on, I have to ask, is he okay? Like, is there something going on there that I'm not aware of? Because really, like, looking at those clips, the vibe that I got, it really reminded me of like 2002, 2003 Jeff Hardy, when it was clear that the WWE wanted to push him and make him into like a main event player, which would have been easier to do with 2 world titles floating around. It frees up some spots, and it's easier to slip Jeff Hardy into that role. And it was clear that they wanted him to be like one of those guys, but his performances in the ring, he had that one match with Undertaker, the ladder match, that got a lot of praise, a lot of buzz. And then it felt like after that, his ability and his consistency and his proficiency in the ring just took a nosedive, just took an absolute nosedive. And, it comes out he's on some stuff and, continuing some bad habits, and some bad habits are getting worse. And that ultimately, some peaks and valleys along the way. And it culminated with what we saw at Victory Road 2011, almost a decade later. So, Jeff's demons, were an element of his career for quite a while. But, it was clear to me, like, even watching back then, it's like, dude, they can't put the belt on Jeff. Look at him. He's a mess right now. And now looking at these clips of Jey Uso and hearing about how he's gotten worse in the ring. I remember when he won the world title and at the WrestleMania press conference, he was clearly smashed. Like, it's like, look, and I chalked it up to, hey, he's having some celebratory drinks and having a good night. It's like, all right, maybe this is a one-off thing. But I now have to ask the question, is Jey Uso okay? Like, is there something going on there? Does he need help? I don't know. Like, I don't know. I'm just asking questions. Again, I'm not one of the ones that was being hyper negative about Jey Uso getting this push and getting that belt. My bigger problem is that I don't think the belt should even exist in the first place. Lance Storm went on a whole rant a while back saying how like the WWE product was much better when you just had one world champion. And it was Roman Reigns. The tag division was much better when you just had one set of tag champions, and it was the Usos. And I fully agree with that. So whatever push or whoever gets that world heavyweight title, I don't even think the belt should exist in the first place. And it's contributing to the downgrading of the status of champion, which is an industry-wide problem. Again, I'm going to get into AEW in a minute, but in regards to Jey Uso, I'm like, I'm just throwing the question out there. I don't have a solution or anything like that. I'm just saying, is he okay? Because if he's not okay, then maybe he shouldn't be getting world heavyweight title matches anymore. I don't know. Maybe LA Knight should be getting that spot. I don't know. He seems a little bit more with it. Again, I haven't watched LA Knight. Maybe he's bumbling all over the ring now. I don't know. I haven't watched WWE in months, but yeah, I don't know. It's like, it's made me kind of second guess Jey Uso, because it's like, oh, look, it's one thing, the internet crowd and their whole like star ratings and work rate and all this other stuff, the stuff that really doesn't matter all that much. But I'm like, look, the crowd loves him. They're still with him. What's the problem? But if personal problems are going to spill into your performance in the ring, then that's the time to kind of like change gears and go with somebody else. Again, just I don't know. I don't know Jey personally. I don't know what's going on. The impression I got just from looking at those clips painted a picture that wasn't very good. So, but wish him all the best. Hope everything's okay, and hopefully they can move past whatever it was that was going on in that Punk match and get to a better place with Jey. But in any case, what else is going on? Oh yeah, AEW, they just had their Blood and Guts show. I have not watched it yet. It's in my queue. I'll check it out. It's getting rave reviews online because of course it is. It's long matches on TV, so of course that gets rave reviews a lot of the time. I don't know if it's any good. I'll check it out. But another wrestling show I was curious to check out was JCW, Juggalo Championship Wrestling, and now that it's being written by Vince Russo, again, I have not watched this yet. It is in my queue. Also in my queue are Survivor Series 1987 and 1989. Thank you, WWE Vault. I love the WWE Vault. They always know what I want and when I want it. It's like, yeah, I want to watch Survivor Series 87 and 89, probably the two Survivor Series events that I have the most like nostalgic fondness for. Thank you, WWE Vault. But in regards to JCW, I didn't even know JCW, Juggalo Championship Wrestling, was still a thing. So when I heard that Vince Russo was writing for them, I was like, all right, I'm curious. We'll see how this goes. So I will probably have more thoughts on JCW moving forward. Again, I haven't watched the first episode of the Russo era of JCW yet, but it'll be something. It'll be something. I mean, I've been clamoring for it. It's like we need to get away from work rate and star ratings and that being the driving force of wrestling content. And we need to get to stories, characters, creating matches that I actually want to see and winning our, building up our anticipation for those big matches and those big clashes between those big characters, not strictly going for star ratings and not strictly going through this like boring formula bullshit that we've been fed for the last 2 decades, it seems. It's gotten worse over the course of the last 2 decades. So, JCW, I remember watching clips of it years and years ago and thinking, it's like, yeah, that looks like an indie. and it'll probably, I'm sure I'll watch it. Like, yeah, it looks like an indie. But if they could do something entertaining with it, we'll see. I don't know, but I'm curious, to say the least. But getting back into AEW, there's a few things that came out this week, or starting from last week and coming into today. AEW is introducing a national title because, of course, they are. They're introducing more belts. We need more belts. Just more belts. Just more belts. Yay! I don't care. Why? And they still haven't crowned the women's tag titles that they just introduced, and it's maddening. Their only idea, if I was in a wrestling company and I was sitting in the creative meeting and somebody pitched a new title, I would want to throw that person out the window. Like why do we need more belts? There's so many friggin' belts. We're going to get to a point where there's more people with belts, and especially in AEW, because you've got the CMLL belts floating around. You've got Mercedes walking around, and I'm going to get into Mercedes in a minute, but she's walking around with 400 belts. You've got New Japan belts floating around. You got the ROH belts floating around there, and it's just like there's going to be, their roster is going to get to a point where there's more champions than non-champions. It's like, and at that point, does it even matter who the champion is? I don't know. They need to cut out the belts. And yes, I criticize WWE for having too many belts, and they do. I've criticized New Japan for having too many belts, and they do. But AEW is just, every time I turn around, there's some new belt that they're introducing. And it's like, time out. Why? What are you doing? What do you realize? Do you realize something? That if the health department sees how many belts you have, they're going to shut us down. I apologize. Smiling Friends really laid an egg in my brain a couple weeks ago. But it's God damn it, man. There's too many belts. Stop it. Just stop it. I'm not going to care, because I haven't cared the last 47 times you crowned a new champion, because you've had... I remember when they first introduced the TNT title, and I was like, okay. And that was back then when all they had was the World Women's and Tag title. I was like, oh, another belt. Okay. And then at that point in time, they had room for a mid-card title. I was just worried about what it was going to create. And here we are years later. I'm like, oh my God, in the holiest of holy heavens, will you stop with the belts? There's too many belts. It's like somewhere along the line, the professional wrestling business got taken over by star rating junkies and belt marks, and it needs to fucking stop. It needs to stop. But anyway, another piece of AEW news, the former Tegan Knox, Nixon Newell, and Miranda Elise were a part of the women's tag team tournament. And they walked out on an episode of Collision because they were not happy about having only 3 minutes of bell time for their match. First of all, I was happy to hear it say, oh, there's a short match on AEW television. That's cool. Like, we need short matches. I like short match. And this kind of plays into the discussion I was having last week in my previous video, where we need to have short matches back. I feel like matches on TV should generally be pretty short, because you want to build up to those bigger matches. Like, wrestling television should predominantly be angles, promos, and things that help promote the bigger matches down the road, and not so much. And unfortunately, we've gotten to a point where every match is trying to be, I made a comment on my previous video, every match is trying to be like Bret Hart and the 1-2-3 Kid from from that episode of Raw in the mid-90s. And now every match is trying to be that now, and it's just like, those matches were rare back then. So every once in a while, we'd get a great match on TV. Not every single week will we get it. And now, guess what? They're not great matches anymore, because they're just exhausting to sit through, because every match looks the same now. But this whole situation kind of plays into that discussion, where I even said in my previous video, if I was a wrestler and I got my time cut, I'd be thinking, okay, what can I do to stand out in these in this case, 3 minutes? What can I do to stand out to leave an impression? And in Nixon and Miranda's case, this would have been a great opportunity to show, kind of show their professionalism and be like, sure, we'll work a 3-minute match and do it and win some favor with the office and the company. They'll be like, hey, these girls, we cut their time and they were very cool about it and they were very professional about it. Maybe we should bring them back and do something with them. Like leave a positive impression, and then they can bring you back later and do something a little bit more substantial. Or, of course, when I made my comment, I was saying like, okay, if they cut my time, I would try to come up with some kind of moment in the match that would stick with people, even if it was a short match. But in this case, it's like you could have won some favor with the office by agreeing to go out there and have the 3-minute match, and then you'd have been, you would have left a positive impression. They probably would have signed you. But didn't do that. You walked out and gave up an opportunity, because there were people, again, there were some people who would kill for TV time of any kind, because any TV time you get is promotion for yourself. And that's, again, plays into what I was saying. It's like, what can I do to stand out in these handful of minutes? And now it's like, well, AEW's not going to want to work with you anymore. And guess what? That goes around, because then other indie feds are going to be like, well, if they're strong-arming WWE, or if they're strong-arming AEW, what are they going to do to us? And WWE gets wind of it, and it's like, well, thank God, Tegan's gone, because Tegan was one that like seemed to be a bit of an internet darling. I always heard her praised positively, but she always got hurt, and that kind of stalled whatever pushes she was getting. And she, because she was getting hurt so frequently, she barely ever left an impression on me. I just knew her as the girl that got hurt a lot, unfortunately. And this was a chance, fresh start, new company, new run in a different company, at least. AEW is hardly new anymore, but this was a chance to kind of leave a positive impression on people, and you just didn't do that. So, and some people, one piece of discourse I heard floating around was that it's like, oh, these AEW fans that are crapping on them, it's like, well, they all praised Mercedes when she walked out of WWE, or when Sasha Banks walked out of WWE. And I'm like, I didn't. I thought it was like, why is she throwing a temper tantrum? like I didn't praise her at all. I was like, what did I didn't praise her at all. I was like, why is she doing that? Why is she throwing a temper tantrum over a tag title match? I don't know. So no, and I'm going to get into Mercedes in a minute, but I don't know. It just seemed like just a bad miscalculation on the part of Nixon Newell and Miranda Elise. Just a very bad miscalculation that's going to hurt them in the long run. But it's kind of like, I remember when Eva Elise, who I liked from her Lucha Underground days, and she was getting some matches in AEW, and then she decided to go out there, and I think it was Thunder Rosa, and she sandbagged her. I was like, well, guess who's not going to have a run in AEW anymore? It's just, I don't know why these people do this. Like, it's just, I don't know. It just seems like a bad way to promote yourself and a bad way to, carry favor with the companies that you're trying to get work with. But in any case, let's move on to Mercedes Moné, who recently got listed at the top of the PWI top 250 women's talents, with Toni Storm taking the number 2 spot. I completely disagree with that. I think Toni Storm is number 1 in my book. Above, because again, even compared to like the WWE talents, like who has been as consistently entertaining, as consistently, again, entertaining and delivering and interesting as Toni Storm has. Like, I think she's by far the best female talent out there right now, at least when you check off all the boxes: good in ring, good promos, best character, best storylines. Her feud with Mariah May is a strong contender for feud of the year, even though Mariah May's gone to a different company. I'd say, like, okay, women's feud of the year, it's like, it's Toni Storm and Mariah May. Name another one, please. And you look at all the other talents across the board, it's like, I can't think of another one that's been as interesting as Toni, but they gave it to Mercedes. And of course, some WWE fans are like, oh, it's bullshit that 2 AEW talents take the 2 top spots, and like that stupid tribalism thing. But with Mercedes, the justification I keep hearing, is that, oh, well, she wins all these belts and all this other stuff. And this kind of plays into, because I've seen the debate going around that the Sting Undertaker debate has been floating around lately, which is an interesting debate to have because I'm a big fan of both guys and I grew up with both of them. So I have strong opinions on both. But I saw one take, I forget who said it, but it's like one of the reasons that Undertaker gets put above Sting is because he had the streak, the WrestleMania streak, which was, all those wins at WrestleMania that'll never happen again or whatever. And that puts him above Sting. And I'm thinking like, all those wins are fake. Like that's not, and I'm not even taking aside Sting or Undertaker. It's like Undertaker didn't beat anybody. He was told to win those matches. They didn't even know they had the streak until year 9. Like the first time I remember them mentioning it was WrestleMania 17, and they didn't promote it very heavily. Excuse me. So, like, what does that have to do with anything? So the justification, PWI takes wins and losses and title wins into account when they make these lists, which I've never understood because it's like, that's the part that's fake. Like, well, yeah, she won 12 belts. Yeah, from a bunch of different companies I've never heard of, never watched. And a promoter decided she would win those matches. She didn't actually beat anybody. So what are you talking about? And the Mercedes that I've seen in AEW, at least from her AEW work, and this is the impression that I get from Mercedes, and I said this back when she debuted early when she debuted in AEW and when she had her debut in New Japan, which was a bit of a flop, where she botched that move in her debut, and I was like, oh, that's not a good first impression. She strikes me as a talent who did really well in WWE, in the WWE system. Everybody, blew smoke and roses up her ass and told her she was the best thing on the planet, and she started to believe it. And as a result, she thought she could go outside of WWE and achieve the same level of praise and success. And yeah, she's been successful. They've been booking her like a monster, winning all those belts and everything. But when you look at like the quality of her work, I think she's regressed. I think that's fair to say. Stevie Richards said it on his podcast, and I think that's a fair word to say. She's not as good as she was in WWE. She's not the Sasha Banks of old. Not that she's gotten older and weaker or slower or anything. It's just, I think she's just kind of like convinced herself that she's the best and hasn't worked to stay consistent or improve. And her finisher is one of the worst things I've ever seen, and she botches it more than she hits it. And I don't know why she insists on using that as a finisher. Her storylines and feuds are kind of boring because it's just, I'm going to win another belt. And then you have this match where 9 times out of 10, she's going to win. And she wins, and that's it. And the matches themselves, range from good, some of them were good, to kind of sloppy in some cases. And to be perfectly honest, the best match I've seen Mercedes have outside of WWE was her match with Toni Storm at All In. So it's like, okay, so the best match I've seen her have, she is over the girl who I felt should have gotten it, the number 1 spot in the top 250. Not that I put that much stock into the PWI rankings anyway. I'm just stating a case for Toni Storm here. It's like the best match I've seen Mercedes have was with Toni, and that's far and away the best match I've seen her have. And, Toni, who's had a pretty consistent run of being really good and really entertaining, as opposed to somebody who's kind of boring and repetitive. And, any justification for Mercedes getting that top 250, the number 1 spot, it's like the Triple H justification where he won like Superstar of the Decade a while back in the mid 2000s. Like, yeah, because he's been there the whole time and he's been winning belts. That's the only justification for it. Quality of work, I mean, he's had his moments, he's had his great matches, but holy shit. Like, come on, man. There's got to be somebody better, right? Somebody more consistent, somebody good. I don't know, but again, that's just my take on Mercedes. So yeah, I just wanted to comment on that because I thought it was interesting. It kind of flared up online too, so wanted to throw my 2 cents in there. And then, just reported right before I started filming, Joe Hendry has reportedly signed with WWE, which is the least shocking thing ever. I called that when TNA entered the working relationship with WWE, and I'm like, guess who's going to WWE? And it's Joe Hendry. And it's like, yeah, so this is, if it's happened, this is the least shocking news ever. But, yeah, good for him, I guess. He gets a run out of it. Hopefully gets a couple of big paydays and a push out of it, and we'll see where that goes. But not much else to say other than that. So All right, let's get into the Q&As. First of all, I want to thank Ryan for his awesome message. Didn't really provide any questions, but he sent me a wonderful, wonderful email. I do want to call that out and say thank you very much for that. A longtime listener sent a wonderful, very heartfelt message, and I was glad to get that. So thank you for sending that over, Ryan. All right, first up, Dustin Weber, what are your opinions on the Crackle exclusive Lucha Libre series Heroes of Lucha Libre from 2020? I've not seen it, so I don't really have any strong opinions of it. And also, what else? There was another one on MTV2. There was Lucha Libre USA. Your opinions on that? Again, no strong opinions. I didn't see either show. I'm not a big Lucha Libre guy. I know I was big into Lucha Underground, but that was more for the style of presentation and the unique presentation of it, not so much a love of Lucha Libre. Comparing it to all the other different wrestling cultures, I guess you could say, like the European and Japanese styles are more my taste. And obviously I love the theatrical United States American style, but Mexican wrestling, it's bright colors, a lot of big spots, but a lot of the matches wind up looking the same to me, and it just never grabbed me in the way that the other ones did. Not that there's never been good Lucha Libre out there, I'm not saying that, but it's never been a style that I actively sought out and to watch. So I miss those shows because it's just Lucha Libre is just not usually my cup of tea. But so no, I did not see those. Had Owen Hart not suffered his tragic fall in 1999 and still had a place in pro wrestling, what do you think he would have done? I think Owen was probably close to retirement. I always hear that he was looking to get out of the business not long after the unfortunate event happened. But I'm sure he would have had a place in WWE for at least a little bit longer. Probably would have worked with the Benoits, the Guerreros, the Angles, those guys when they came into WWE. Would have had like a slew of great matches with them. Jericho, I'm sure he would have worked with at some point. Had a little bit of a late career renaissance at some point. Some people think he would have won the world title. I don't think so. I think if he didn't get it in 94, he was never going to get it. But I do think that, yeah, he could have had a late stage renaissance in WWE and a nice little run, a nice little series of matches before calling it a day. And maybe he could have had small runs here in TNA or something like that, big matches here and there. But I feel like Owen was on the back end of his career. Not that it showed in his work. I'm just, based on what I've heard and what I've read and what I've seen, it's like he was looking to get out. And he was just kind of like, the end of his career was coming sooner rather than later, before the tragedy happened. But who knows? It's one of those what ifs. We'll never know. I don't know if you remember Jonathan J. Vargas, the 19-year-old lottery winner, whom Johnny... I'm sorry. This is a paragraph of a question. Jimmy Hart and the original Glow Booker, Steve Battle Royal Blanque, fleeced him of his lotto winnings so that he could relaunch Crush, the thankfully short-lived spiritual successor to Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling in the mid-2000s. I did not know any of this story. I did not know anything about this, so no. However, what do you think would have happened in 2009-2010 if Vargas had used his lotto winnings to help furnish a TV program dedicated for TNA's Knockouts division? I wouldn't be surprised if a TNA Knockout show was pitched at some point, because they really were kind of like a big deal in TNA early on, because it was like this fresh new thing. Oh, the women's division. But I don't know, when you give them their own exclusive show, it makes them a lot less cool, I guess. It's kind of like when WWE did a full-on cruiserweight show, and I'm like, I kind of like variety. Wrestling works better when it's a variety show. So when you do a show that's just cruiserweights or just the women, it's kind of like, now it's not fun anymore, because it's like you've turned it into the show and it doesn't have like a place on this wider variety show. I typically enjoy wrestling when it's like heavyweights and tag teams and cruiserweights and women and hardcore and, straight up technical wrestling, and you have all your bases covered on one show. I've never been a big fan of just having one type of thing on a show and just letting that be the show. And I'm like, not really for me. So I like the variety show aspect of pro wrestling. And I don't know, a knockout show, I'm sure it was probably pitched at some point, but, not really something that I don't know if it would have been able to sustain its own show, at least not the level of intrigue to maintain a show. But who knows? If Big Vision Entertainment had put you in charge of Wrestling Society X in 2006, 2007, what would you have done differently to make it a wrestling product that wrestling fans would less likely despise? I never saw Wrestling Society X. I heard a lot about it when it came out, but I never actually watched it. And it sounded like there were some elements of Lucha Underground in there, like a little bit. Like it was kind of like a precursor to a precursor of Lucha Underground. That's the impression I got from the descriptions. Again, I didn't see it, so I don't really know what I would do to change it, unfortunately. But it sounded interesting. It sounded intriguing. Maybe I would have. I probably would have watched. Let's say I came into it after it already aired to be like, all right, we need you to like come up with some ideas to fix this. I would have watched the show first and been like, okay, maybe do this and this and this, and kind of go through it with a red pen and see. This can stay, this is interesting, but we need to fix this and this and this. But, as is, I've never seen the show, so I don't really have a strong opinion on it one way or the other. All right, I faintly remember an episode of TNA Impact from late 2006 that involved Kurt Angle wanting a rematch with Samoa Joe after he lost. He was desperate for a rematch with Joe, so he grabbed SoCal Val by the hair and threatened to assault her if he didn't get the rematch. I think TNA really missed an opportunity to turn Val into its own version of Trish Stratus by taking her off TV for a year or two to train as a wrestler and bringing her back to TV when she was thoroughly ready to take names and kick ass as an official TNA knockout. Well, that's up to what like SoCal Val wanted. Did SoCal Val ever express interest in wanting to become like a full-fledged wrestler? I don't know, or was she just happy being the ring girl, the valet, that type of stuff? I don't know. Like that's a better question for SoCal Val. If that was something she was interested in doing, they just never let her, go down that path for whatever reason. But if she's not into it, she's not interested in becoming a full-fledged wrestler, then there's only so much you can do with that. So I don't know. That's probably a better question for SoCal Val, but she might have turned into a really good wrestler. Who knows? They tried it with Christy Hemme and it, so again, who knows? See, Trish, you used the Trish example. Trish came into the WWE, I believe, with the intent on becoming a wrestler. So she wanted to train and wanted to get good. That was her goal. As far as I understand, that was her goal. So, I don't know if that was what SoCal Val wanted. And I doubt it was, given her positioning in most of the wrestling companies she's worked for. But, all right. These next questions are coming in from Multimedia Assassin. All right. After Donald Trump, do you hope Americans will support third-party candidates or support moderate Republicans and Democrats, or are we stuck with far-left, far-right politicians forever? I think we're stuck with the uniparty, the Republicans and Democrats that work together behind the scenes that screw everything up for everybody, and they're going to, Donald Trump was something that kind of like, how do I want to phrase this? He kind of caught them off guard and kind of shook the boat for a little while. But once he's gone, it's like, it's going to be business as usual. They're just going to keep doing all the same stupid bullcrap that they do. And, use the stupid bullcrap that Donald Trump did as justification for them to do their stupid bullcrap. And then we all get screwed in the end. It's all work. Politics is just a work. So no, there's no hope for a third party. I don't think. Maybe I'm wrong, but I doubt it. Don't you wish we still had the kind of unity and civility like we did in the 80s, 90s, and 2000s? Well, I mean, there were issues in the 80s, 90s, and 2000s. It wasn't like this golden age of society that, crumbled or anything like that. But I do feel like things have gotten worse since then. We were moving in the right direction as a society, in a lot of ways. And then it's like, I don't know. My joke is always that, like, pop culture and society died with 9/11 and the smartphone, and everything just got stupid. That's kind of how I feel now. So we've got to like rebuild a lot of what's going on. But I think I think people need to understand that politicians are not your friends, and we shouldn't always be listening to them. And we should be looking at all politicians with very, very, very critical eyes. And they have such a stranglehold on how people think and feel and react to things, especially with the internet being what it is. And people need to kind of like, not adopt these people as their heroes or even as their villains. Like, going on and on about like, and granted, I just called them all evil, but so, I maybe I'm a hypocrite, but, you gotta like, just look at everything with a critical eye, assume they're lying to you, and kind of do as much research as you can to make your own decisions and your own thoughts, and hold these people accountable, and realize that a lot of what we've been fed for the last 20 years has been bullshit. And the sooner more people do that, I think we'll be better off. And kind of cycling out all these old fogies that have been in office for 20, 30, 40 years, that would be nice. But yeah, there's a lot of work that needs to be done on that front, though. Have you been following up on the Nintendo controversies with Switch 2 and Pokemon versus Pal World situation? I have not. I heard about like the Switch 2 being expensive. I have not bought a Switch 2. I'm still perfectly fine with my Switch 1, so I'm okay with it. It's kind of like I remember I didn't buy a PS4 until the PS5 came out. So the year the PS5 came out, I bought a PS4 for dirt cheap, under $200. Which, it doesn't sound dirt cheap, but by gaming console standards, it's pretty cheap. And I got it the same year the PS5 came out. I am still using that PS4. I have any game I've wanted to play, I've been able to play on the PS4. It's one of the smartest, like, entertainment / gaming purchasing decisions I've ever made, because it's just, it's like, man, I am so glad I didn't chalk over that money for a PS5, because the PS4 works great. It gives me everything I want, and I'm still using it. Over 5 years later, I'm still using it. So, yeah, that was a smart purchase. But so no, to answer your question, I haven't followed any of those controversies beyond I know a lot of people were upset about the Switch 2 price. Nintendo's been weird, like, with how they handle their systems, because the Wii was really popular initially, and then they did the Wii U, which is like a sequel console, and I'm like, why are you doing this? I don't know if, like, the way the PlayStation markets their devices made them want to go in that direction. And then we got the Switch, which feels like what Nintendo wanted to do with the Wii initially, like what they wanted it to be all along. Like what they've been going for as like a console that's like interactive, and it's both a handheld and a main television console. Like, it feels like that's what they'd been building to from the Wii onward, and now it's like, all right, what's after the Switch 2? And it's like it's just weird marketing. I don't know. Like, I don't know. I have no interest in a Switch 2, quite honestly, because I'm happy with my Switch. So maybe being an adult makes me a little bit more, I don't know, and being a father too, and having to account for my kids and buying things for them, maybe it makes me a little bit more conscious about the things I buy. But in any case, do you and your family have any interest in checking out the Epic Universe theme park at Universal Orlando? I would prefer to see that over Disney, but I think my kids are going to outvote me, and we'll probably wind up going to Disney, but not until both of them are able to walk and talk on their own. My 2-year-old is up and running around like a crazy person. My 7-month-old is not, so it'll be a while before we go to a theme park. Maybe I can talk him into the Epic Universe, because I would much prefer to go there over Disney, but we shall see. What would you consider to be the golden age of Godzilla? Well, it's got to be the 60s, the Showa era. Because that was not just Godzilla, but the entire genre was like at its peak when you had Gamera showing up, and you had Gappa, and you had Toho releasing all these other movies like Mothra and War of the Gargantuas and Atragon, and King Kong had a movie, King Kong Escapes. 2 movies. He had the one with Godzilla, too. So it was like giant monsters were just in. The Demajin trilogy was another one. The Ultra series started in the 60s. So that's where you got Ultraman, and the birth of Tokusatsu on television, which led to Kamen Rider and Super Sentai and things like that. So to me, the golden age of Godzilla and the genre as a whole is the 1960s. All right, moving right along. What are some of your favorite wrestling finishers? My all-time favorites are the Diamond Cutter / RKO and the DDT, Jake Roberts DDT. I like the kind of snap, boom, hit it out of nowhere, it's over type of finishers. The Stone Cold Stunner kind of plays into that too. But yeah, those are the finishers I love the most. Why do you think a lot of wrestling fans like Bobby Lashley, despite having a cut and dry personality? His mic skills have always been his biggest downfall, but really it's believability. I mean, just look at him. He's a monster, and he's got the MMA credentials. He just looks legit. He feels legit. And in an age where the wrestlers are getting smaller and smaller and smaller, having a big heavyweight brute in there kind of instantly goes, whoa. Like, I remember when they put him up against Lesnar, I was like, I'm seeing that match. I want to see those 2 Mack trucks go at it. So a lot of the appeal of Bobby Lashley are his physical gifts, of which there are many, and the way he looks. And I was saying that about Lashley back in 2005 when he first debuted. But again, the promos were always like his Achilles heel, unfortunately. Have you heard the unfortunate news that Devon Dudley has accused Jim Ross of racism? Yes, I did hear that. I don't know anything beyond that. I just heard that the comments were made, that Devon made those comments. That's it. That's really all I know about it. What do you think of Mike Santana in TNA? Well, I didn't see him win the title. Good for him, but apparently they've already undone that, and Frankie Kazarian is now the TNA champion. So I don't know. I never saw Mike Santana as main event player, but if he was able to turn that around and become something in TNA, good for him. But again, I haven't watched TNA all year, quite honestly. So I don't really know how he's been doing there, or how he translates as like a world title contender, but yeah, what are you gonna do? Have you ever found yourself in heated arguments with fringe fans online, WWE, AEW sickos, etc.? No, some people have tried to start fights with me, and I just don't engage. It's just not my thing. So I'm just like, all right, some people try to start fighting, and I'm just kind of like Big Lebowski. It's like, yeah, it's just your opinion, man. Now, I do remember way back in the day, we're talking over a decade ago, I was a member of the Spoonie one, Noah Antweiler. I was a member of his forums, and I got into, I was a little bit of a shit stirrer on those forums. Supposedly, one of the people I pissed off the most went on to become Cheeseburger on the indie scene, and that got back to me. It's like, yeah, you and Cheeseburger used to flame each other on Spoonie's forums, and I was just being an asshole, admittedly, but I kind of enjoyed being an asshole because it was, and Spoonie's forums, and I found this out very quickly, was a very toxic environment, and it was very easy to rile people up, and like completely innocuous things I would say would get people just really heated and pissed off. Like and again, in the wrestling forums, one that I remember saying was that I felt like the WWE should just get rid of the tag titles because they're pointless. They're like jobber belts at this point. Nobody cares who the tag champions are. Best to just let it go away and then maybe bring it back when you actually have a plan for a tag division. I mean, this is when like Mike McGillicuddy and somebody else were holding like the tag titles, or he wasn't rechristened Curtis Axel yet. It was complete randos. I think the core were holding the tag titles at this point or something like that. I'm like, can we just get rid of the tag titles? I'm done. I'm done pretending to care about the tag titles. And some people were so pissed off that I would ever suggest getting rid of the tag titles because of the prestige and the history. How dare you? And they were so upset. And one person accused me of being a troll. And I was like, motherfucker, no, that's not trolling. This is trolling. And then I just turned on I flipped the asshole switch and just went full on flame over there on Spoonie's forum. So that's the closest I've ever come to just being a complete dickhead and getting into a heated argument. But for me, it was just like, oh, I'm trolling. Oh, no. This is trolling. And I went completely obnoxious, complete asshole. So, but other than that, no. What are some of the coolest looking wrestling toys you've ever seen? Well, I grew up with the Hasbro WWF figures, and I adore those, and I love them. But probably the coolest figures, I loved the WCW Toy Biz figures from like the late 90s. Like I had the Liz and Macho Man, I had the Hollywood Hogan, I had a Goldberg, I had a Sting. Those figures were really, really cool. I love those. And kind of like the best of like the posable wrestling figures, and like, had special motions and actions that they get, kind of the template for the way wrestling figures are now, quite honestly. So yeah, I really, really, really like those. Did you ever hear the rumors from 2011 that the WWE wanted to bring back the NWO with CM Punk as its leader? Didn't they kind of do that by making him the leader of the Nexus? I never heard that rumor, but yeah, they felt like they made him the leader of the Nexus. He was still leading the Nexus at Money in the Bank 2011. That's something that people forget. Like he had like a new Nexus graphic under his name when he came out for that match. And I think is the Nexus still a thing? I don't know, but whatever, it is what it is. Would you consider Scott D'Amore as TNA's real first leader, as they never had a leader before, especially during the Dixie Carter era, who was just a boss and not a leader? I would say Jeff was probably the first leader they had, especially through the early days. But Scott D'Amore was like a true believer who really wanted to help TNA, and then they just got rid of him for no reason. It's like, okay. He was kind of the one that helped bring TNA back to some level of relevance or something, and then they just got rid of him. It was like, I don't know what the circumstances were, but it was very weird. All right, what do you think of the whole Andrade situation where he might not be able to wrestle for a whole year and possibly might have to go back to WWE? It's fucked up. Like, it's really weird. Look, I'm no Andrade fan, but it's like, what the hell is this whole situation where he can't, wait a minute, so he can't go work for another company, but he's not allowed to work anywhere else, but you're not going to pay him. Like, it's the weirdest situation. It's like, why are we like deliberately screwing this one guy over just so AEW doesn't get a talent who's not going to move the needle anyway? I'm like, come on, guys. It's Andrade. We know what we're getting with him. He's not going to be this big needle mover. Like, just let AEW have him. Who cares? And then it's like, if AEW loses him to WWE over this crooked nonsense, that just makes it's going to, like, AEW's kind of going to have egg on their face, but it also makes WWE look like dickheads to do this. Like, so it's like nobody looks good. And it's like all this over Andrade. And I feel bad for Andrade because that's freaking stupid. But, who knows? I don't know. It's really weird. Have you heard the story of how Tommy Dreamer actually admitted he considered murdering Paul Heyman at WrestleMania 17? Yes, I have heard that story. It's wild. I don't know how far along Tommy Dreamer was in the planning process of this, but you talk about like Dark Side of the Ring worthy episodes. I mean, could you imagine if that actually, even if he even got into the building with the gun, like how like crazy that would have been. Like it would have been like a wrestling story that would have lived on forever. But glad he didn't go through with it. We don't need that. Don't need that happening, especially on a huge show like WrestleMania, where all the eyes of the world are watching. Kind of glad that something like that didn't go down, but man, that's wild. Why do you think the Tommy Dreamer story was never mentioned on the Rise and Fall of ECW documentary? It's up to the WWE editors. They probably thought it was too dark to put onto a DVD, a mass-marketed DVD release. And again, WWE really sanitizes a lot of their documentaries, and they probably didn't want to have a guy currently working for the company admitting that he was going to go shoot somebody. So, they probably just didn't want that clip floating around. But Vince admitting that he wanted to do a storyline where he impregnated Stephanie, that made it onto a DVD. So who knows? I don't understand like WWE's decision making half the time. With the exception of the few who believe in the product, do you think a majority of AEW wrestlers are only there for money? I'm sure a lot of them are there for the money. It sounds like Tony pays them pretty well, but I do think it has a mix of like true believers and guys who are just there receiving a paycheck. And I guess that's true of any wrestling company. But hey. Are people like Chris Jericho, Jon Moxley, Mercedes Moné, the Young Bucks, Hangman Adam Page, Darby Allin, Ricochet, and MJF bad influences for Tony Khan and AEW? I don't know, because I don't know who's in his ear or who's talking to him backstage. I mean, I speculated that Danielson and Punk were the ones that told him to buy Ring of Honor and put that little earwig in his ear, and that's been an albatross to, an anchor weighing down AEW ever since. That was my thought. It's like, I guarantee you it was Danielson and or Punk that were told him to do it. But I don't know who's telling him what, or who's influencing what, or or whatever. But or if it's just Tony doing whatever he wants, I don't know. Now where Tony where these guys are probably having a bad influence is when they pitch ideas, and Tony should probably say no. And I don't think Tony ever says no to these people, which is why you get things like Jon Moxley almost getting impaled on live television. But hey, whatever. Do you think when Jon Moxley was still Dean Ambrose in WWE and he had that street fight match with Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania 32, that he wanted to do a lot of deathmatch spots? I'm sure he wanted to do thumbtacks. I'm sure he wanted to do barbed wire. And that match was not very good. It was very like milquetoast, boring kind of match. But I don't know if it needed to go super, super, super violent, but I wanted a little bit more edge to it than what we got, especially with the way the match was promoted on TV with, Mick Foley and Terry Funk, like giving Dean Ambrose advice on how to do it. And I was expecting something a little bit more interesting and exciting. And what we got was kind of this boring milquetoast match. But I'm sure Moxley pitched a ton of stupid stuff too. I'm sure he was like, hey, let's use fire. Like, I wouldn't be surprised. And Lesnar's like, absolutely flipping not. So, probably a bad clash of personalities there for that one. Do you think AEW will get bigger if they get away from Tony Khan? Like TNA has vastly improved after they got away from Dixie Carter. Did they improve? I don't think they did. I don't know. It just felt like TNA, ever since they got off Spike TV, has just been kind of like floundering from one channel to another. And now it's like they had to become WWE's lapdogs to kind of maintain any kind of relevancy. I don't know if they are better off without Dixie Carter. I don't know. up to opinion, I guess. But if AEW gets away from Tony Khan, it's like there's no AEW. I feel like I don't know, unless Tony Khan decides, oh, I'm bored, let somebody else run it, and they gives it to somebody who knows, who understands at least basic tenets of pro wrestling. But again, I don't know. What do you think WWE and Triple H's booking? Why do you think WWE and Triple H's booking has been atrocious and mediocre this year? I think a lot of it's the TKO influence. I think a lot of it is The Rock possibly botching the whole Cena-Cody storyline and what happened there. I think a lot of it is they had everything, kind of all their ducks in a row leading up to WrestleMania 40. And then once Cody won the title, they didn't have anything after that. They didn't have anything mapped out or planned after that. So we're just kind of waiting for the next big idea or the next big thing. And instead we've gotten like 2 or 3 Wolfpack bloodline Wolfpacks or whatever. And Cody basically just becoming John Cena where he wins all the time. And it's like, okay. And a botched John Cena retirement tour. And it's like, okay. And, you see all this stuff and it's, I think it's, again, TKO influence. I think a lot of it because, the commercialization of it and all the ads and all that other nonsense has made the product kind of annoying. I think, again, I think it's a lot of TKO's influence, and I think it's not having all their ducks in a row after Roman dropped the belt, because it felt like everything was put into place with Roman as champion, and they got a lot out of that. But then once it was over, it was like, okay, now what? Nobody had an answer. So, yeah, and that happens to a lot. That happens a lot in wrestling. Like, I remember when WrestleMania 17 happened, and you get the Austin heel turn, and then you get the botched WCW invasion, and it's like, oh my god, what is going on here? Because WrestleMania 17 felt like the culmination of the entire era, from like the Monday Night Wars and the era of the Big Three and everything else. That show felt like WWE's big victory lap, really. And then it's like you get the botched invasion angle, and then once the invasion was over, it was like, okay, now what? And they just kind of went back to doing standard Attitude Era stuff. They went back to Austin McMahon for a little bit. They went back to, Rock doing his usual song and dance, but it wasn't as interesting because we'd already kind of seen it. And they kind of, in 2002, they really leaned into like nostalgia, with Hogan and Shawn coming back. So it was kind of like, God, we don't have any big ideas. And that was, a sign of like maybe the good times were done. Maybe they had used up all their creative juices in the Attitude Era, and they needed a down period to kind of refresh and come back for more. So I don't know, but it's a lot of factors at play, but it is what it is. Apart from the financial aspect, in your own opinion, have TKO, Endeavor, and Saudi Arabia hurt WWE creatively? I kind of just answered that question. I feel like they have, because now they have to make decisions to please their corporate overlords, and sometimes that's not always conducive to the most creative and exciting of television. So, all right, questions from Joe from Blackpool. What are some of the matches and pay-per-views you would recommend to somebody who wanted to get into early TNA, so 2002 to 2009? Oh God, I wish I'd put a whole list together, but anything from AJ Styles, anything from America's Most Wanted, stemming from like the weekly pay-per-view era all the way to then, pretty much anything from Beer Money, who I love. Their tag division was great during that time. The Beer Money Motor City Machine Guns Best of 5 series, one of the best things you'll ever see. A lot of the X Division stuff with Joe, AJ, and Daniels when they were the top of the X Division, that stuff was very, very good. A lot of early Abyss stuff, like, if you like the hardcore stuff, was really good. I liked the first year of television on FSN a lot because of the way it was presented with the sports box and the time limits and everything else. So I love that whole presentation. Like some of Kurt Angle's stuff is really good. I think as far as pay-per-views go, like I remember like Turning Point 04 having the cage match at the end especially was probably my favorite match in TNA history. Then Final Resolution had a great world title, a great tag title match, and probably the best Ultimate X match in Sabin, Petey, and AJ. The AJ Daniels matches, I talked about those. The 30-minute Iron Man matches they had were really good. I wish I'd made a whole compilation because I was a really big TNA fan during that point. So a lot of good stuff going on. Trying to think of a couple of the Slammiversaries are really good. I really liked Slammiversary 06. and Slammiversary '07. I remember both being really good shows. If you want to check out the King of the Mountain match at its best, the Slammiversary '07 one is probably the best. Bound for Glory '07, I remember being my favorite TNA pay-per-view that they ever did because it had a little bit of everything, so that's probably worth checking out. So, and then you go up to 2009, like the Kurt Angle, like Desmond Wolfe matches, Nigel McGuinness, those were really good. I liked the Main Event Mafia. I know a lot of people kind of shat on it at the time, but I remember really liking the Main Event Mafia. So, there was, I think that's a bunch of the highlights. There's probably other stuff that I'm forgetting, but there was a lot of stuff to enjoy about TNA at various points during their initial run. Not all of it was great. They had their stinkers for sure. LOL TNA was definitely a thing at various points, but and to throw the knockouts out there, the Gail Kim Awesome Kong match is definitely worth your time. Those are great. All right. Do you think the PG era was overly hated? There were always great matches and there were always like big stars and everything, but I wasn't a fan of the overall presentation of it. It's kind of like, look, New Generation era, yeah, it had some great matches. When you look at the Razor Shawn ladder matches and a lot of Brett's best matches came out of that era, but it was also like watered down, cartoony, and silly in its overall presentation. That's kind of how I felt about the PG era. It's like, yeah, it had its great matches, had its big stars, but it also had like a presentation that I wasn't overly fond of either. So what are you going to do? All right, these questions coming in from High Tide C22. Do you think that the Don Callis family could potentially become the next big long-term stable for pro wrestling, similar to the Bloodline? No, there's too many people in it, and it's nowhere near as interesting. Sorry, that's my take on it. And I actually like Don Callis and some of those talents. It's just the group's too big, and I don't think they'll ever get as big or be like AEW's version of the Bloodline. Just my take. What do you think will be John Cena's final opponent? Personally, I think it's going to be Braun Breaker or Gunther. All signs point to it being Gunther, but again, I haven't been watching, so I don't know for sure. Was there ever a gimmick or character that hasn't been tried that you feel could work today? I don't know. I'm a big believer in like getting offensive characters out there. Like I remember Bobby Lashley kind of got mocked because he tried to push like a racial storyline, and it's like, oh my God, he's insane. Why would he do that? It's like, dude, wrestling for the longest time was all about touching nerves and like, getting the like really emotional responses out of people. I always use the example like, look, Fritz von Erich was a friggin' Nazi. Like literally, that was his gimmick. He was a Nazi, and I'm kind of like, why can't we go something a little bit more extreme or a little bit crazier to kind of like elicit those responses and create some interest and heat and have the babyface go over and get revenge over these really bad people that believe these really bad things? I don't know. Like, I don't know. It was like people were saying Bobby Lashley was crazy. And I'm like, I don't think that's that crazy, especially when you look at the climate out there today, like the social political climate. Why not take advantage of that and make a story out of it? Every other show does. Watch any other show on TV. There's all kinds of racial stuff going on. So, I don't know. I don't understand it, but wrestling kind of pigeonholes itself a little too much sometimes. But I don't know. But all right, if Disney made a new Star Wars trilogy and they asked you to write it, how would you do it? And would you include any of the sequel trilogy characters in it? No, I would start over from scratch because I'm like, if Disney came to me and like, all right, make your own Star Wars trilogy, I'd be like, no more Star Wars for at least a decade, and then we got to start fresh and pretend that 7, 8, and 9 just never happened. Like, that's what we got to do. That's all we got to do. I that would be my only plan because 7, 8, 9 was such a botch. Like, and so, like creatively such just a drop ball that it's like, I wouldn't even know what to do with those characters or how to handle them at this point. So it's like, I would just want to start over from scratch. And I'd be like, okay, here's my plan. The Thrawn trilogy is 7, 8, and 9. Let's start from there. And again, like the original cast can't really use them at this point. Because it's too late. Carrie Fisher's gone. Harrison Ford, Mark Hamill are getting up there. It's too late to really use them. So it's going to have to be far enough into the future to where like Han, Luke, and Leia have kind of passed into legend at this point. That's kind of the hand we've been dealt. So I would be like, just kind of pretend like the first Disney trilogy just didn't happen and huge time gap and just move on from there. That would be my plan, but it is what it is. Would you want your last meal? What would you want your last meal to be, and who would you spend it with? I want my last meal to be the best fucking pizza on planet Earth because I love pizza, or a really, really nice burger, like one of those two, like a really awesome cheeseburger with fries, one of those two. And I would want to spend my last meal with my children. That would be, if I had any kind of control over how I leave this world, that would be my, and God willing, if I could have that meal with my grandchildren as well, that would be nice. That would be my ideal last meal situation. How long do you think it would take the New York Giants to get back to the playoffs again? With a lot of work, because everything that's going on right now, like we are such a cursed team. Like it's just ridiculous. Like I like Jackson Dart, I like Scatterbo, but they need to learn how to protect themselves, and that's why Scatterbo got that nasty injury and Dart's got a concussion. It's like, yeah, you people need to learn how to like protect yourselves. And in Dart's case, it's like you need to learn how to slide, man. Like you're gonna be, instead of being the next Eli Manning, you're gonna be the next RG3. It's like you need to learn how to slide. But our defense needs to be fixed to where we're not crumbling like crazy in the fourth quarter, and a lot of that comes with coaching. So when I heard that Daboll got fired, I was like, I mean, I didn't root for it, and I feel bad for the guy, but you don't let Denver put up 33 points in the fourth quarter. You don't let the Bears come back and win when you're up by 10. You don't let, all of this stuff happen. Dallas, we should have won that game. There's at least like 4 or 5 games this season where we should absolutely have won those games. And you just collapsed and fell apart. And, that comes from coaching. It's like, we got to get better at coaching. We got to get better coaches. We need Dart, Neighbors, and Scatterbo to come back healthy and smarter, learning how to protect themselves. And our defense needs to be a lot better because those fourth quarter crumblings have got to stop. They've got to stop. And again, I think a lot of that comes with coaching. A lot of what I'm talking about comes from coaching. So hopefully we get a good head coach. The top candidate seems to be Gruden for a lot of people. I don't know. I mean, I'll take Gruden over most other guys, quite honestly, but we've got to fix a lot of stuff before we even start talking playoffs. Okay, let's start winning season. Can you get us to a winning season? I'm not even thinking playoffs or Super Bowl at this point, because it's like I felt like there was a huge upside coming out of that win over the Eagles, and all of that has been squandered ever since due to a lot of it bad luck because of the injuries, but a lot of it also bad coaching, and that needs to be fixed. All right, Nicholas Anderson, what are some of your favorite individual years in professional wrestling? I think my number one is 1997 because you got ECW, getting onto pay-per-view and like at its peak. You got peak WCW, where hottest TV, hottest storylines, and WWE finally kind of getting their act together and getting really interesting with some of the best television they ever did, with Stone Cold Steve Austin kind of rising and becoming the star that he would become. So 97 really stands out to me as a very exciting year. 98 stands out to me because WCW, while faltering, was still hot. ECW still hot. WWF, probably the best week-to-week television in WWF history. 2000, if strictly for WWE, because the product was great in 2000. WCW, ECW starting to crumble. But WWF was really, really good in 2000. And then going back to the 80s, like 85 to 89, you look at NWA, JCP, and WWF, I could take any show from any of those years and probably enjoy the holy hell out of them. Like when you look at the big shows and the big stars during those years, like I could watch just about any of it. It was all great. So if I had to pick my favorite years, let's say 85 to 89 and 97, 98, and 2000. I think those are some really, really good years for professional wrestling. Outside of that, you've had your runs where like I really liked TNA the most probably in 2006. I liked Lucha Underground a lot, seasons 1, 2, and 3. Outside of that, Ring of Honor had its periods where it was really red hot. But when I think like individual years of pro wrestling, those are the years that stand out to me the most. So, all right. Do you follow hockey at all? NHL or any organization? Very little. I do follow the Capitals from time to time, but football is really my sport, and I prefer baseball. The problem with me in hockey, it's great to watch in person. It is fantastic to watch in person. It doesn't work as well for me on TV, and I think my problem is I always lose the puck, and I think that's my problem. It's just it doesn't translate as well to exciting television. And football, amazing on TV, not as good in person. It's kind of like the pacing of it is not as exciting when you're seeing it in person. I think the commercial breaks actually help improve the pacing of the football game in a weird way. But football, not as good in person. Baseball, much better in person than it is on TV. So I don't know, it's strange how some sports, basketball works well both TV and I mean, I have bigger problems with basketball rather than whether it's better in person or on TV. But yeah, hockey much better in person than it is on TV, and I think it's because I always lose the puck. So yeah, it is what it is. All right, so Dial F for Film, longtime viewer. Do you have any good book recommendations? Let's see. I just read the Dune books from Frank Herbert. I highly recommend those if you're into like really hard sci-fi. Like this is like not like Star Wars sci-fi fantasy. Like this is sci-fi with some very strong religious overtones thrown into it for good measure. So kind of like a more mature adult Star Wars if I had to assign any kind of a label to it. An oversimplification, but yeah, I really like those books. I would rank them. I probably like one the most. That's the one I always recommend. I really like book 3. Book 2, that's going to be a hard one. If Dune Part 3 that they're making is going to be based on book 2, it's like good luck with that because that's a tough one to turn into a movie. But yeah, I like Dune a lot. I'm currently reading the Oz books. I just finished the second Oz book, and so if you're into like something fantasy, I recommend the Frank Baum Oz books. I'm on a kick right now where I like older things. Like I also just purchased the Tarzan books and the John Carter books. I haven't read them yet, but I went on a kick where I was reading a bunch of The Shadow and Solomon Kane and Doc Savage and all these other old pulp magazines. I like older things. I just that's kind of, I guess that's how my brain is. But if you're into filmmaking, I also recommend the Ishiro Honda biography. Ishiro Honda was the most prolific Godzilla director, but if you want to read an interesting book about the life and times of a filmmaker, I highly recommend that one. And I always recommend The Disaster Artist to people, the book, not the movie. The problem with the movie is that it felt like James Franco just wanted to get together with his friends and reenact scenes from the room, and that was the entire point behind that movie, where it's like, no. The book is actually like a very interesting look at the filmmaking process in Hollywood and just getting movie roles and how hard that is for a lot of struggling actors. And that was the real appeal of The Disaster Artist. The Room and Tommy Wiseau and all this other stuff was kind of like the gateway to get me to want to check out the book. But reading it, I'm like, wow, this is like, the film industry is like a really tough business. And, you know, it's kind of I kind of walked away from it feeling even more conflicted about Tommy Wiseau as a person, because like, man, that guy's an asshole. But at other times he also kind of bucked the system and did what he wanted to do, and I kind of weirdly respect that. So it's a very like complicated and very fun read, I think. And I think the movie completely missed the point of what the book was going for, at least in my opinion. And I also recommend the audiobook because Greg Sestero's imitation of Tommy Wiseau is so pitch perfect that it's worth listening to the audiobook just for that. All right, next question. What are some interesting places you visited? I'm not a well-traveled person, but I did go to Mexico for my honeymoon, and that was a lot of fun. That was a fun trip. In my cross-country trips to and from Vegas, I really liked the smaller scale, quieter places. Like Utah really appealed to me because it's so quiet. It's so quiet, and everywhere looks peaceful and just. I really liked Utah. I really liked Arizona, even though that I'm not a big fan of extreme heat. But man, two beautiful states, beautiful states. To just driving through them was beautiful. And I really liked, I took a trip up to Maine a few years ago, and Maine is gorgeous. Like everywhere you look, it looks like a postcard. And again, very tranquil, very peaceful, smaller scale. I like that. That's just how I am. So, yeah. It's I'm kind of a quiet, kind of low key kind of guy. I don't like major cities; they're too loud for me. All right. And Clark Herman, questions from Clark Herman. Are you a fan of Arthur? You know, it's funny, when I read that question, I thought he meant Archer, the cartoon show with the the degenerate spy agency, and H. John Benjamin voicing Archer. I love that show for a few seasons. It definitely lost its way, especially when you get into Dreamland and the Coma seasons. But I really like that show. But no, he was talking about the children's show Arthur, which, no, I never watched it. So I've seen some of the memes, but I never actually watched the show, so I have no opinion of it. And I didn't grow up with it, so I'm sure if I watched it now, I'd be like, yeah, it's a cute kid's cartoon. But I don't have a strong opinion of it, because I think when that show started, I want to say it was late 90s, and I was probably already too old for it. So it was kind of like, I remember the Berenstain Bears cartoon from the 80s. So that gives you an idea where I came from. With they broke the lamp with a soccer ball, and they lied about a bird doing it. They kept changing the colors of the bird, and that was supposed to be a lesson to teach kids not to lie. Like, that's how far back I go. I remember the Berenstain Bears. So Arthur is a little after my time. Would you have enjoyed Bret and Owen in an I Quit match at WrestleMania 11? Probably, unless Piper was the guest referee. And I love Roddy Piper. I love Roddy Piper, but he was the worst part of that Backlund Bret match and just sank the whole thing. Having to scream into the microphone every 2 seconds. It was just, that match is so awkward. And it's a large part of it is because of Piper, unfortunately. So if he was involved in the Bret Owen match, you probably, unfortunately, would have had the same result. But I would have been more interested in Bret and Owen having a final showdown at Mania 11 with the title involved. And again, how would you get to that point? Because Backlund had won the title at Survivor Series. I felt like they put the belt on Diesel way too quickly. There was no anticipation for Diesel to get the belt. They just randomly put the belt on him at MSG, and it was like, oh dear, that's a mistake, and kind of undercut him as champion. Now, I'm not saying that Diesel never should have gotten the belt, but that would really, really undercut him. So how do you get the belt from Backlund into the Bret and Owen situation? Do Bret and Owen for the title and Mania, maybe the Rumble. Maybe you would do Bret and Owen. See, again, because you got to get the belt off Backlund somehow. So maybe Owen wins the belt from Backlund on Raw, and then you do Bret and Owen at the Rumble. And then Diesel gets the belt after. I don't know. Like, it's kind of a complicated situation. How do you get to, let's say Bret and Owen at Mania. Owen wins. Bret and Owen at Mania. Owen wins at Mania. Heel walks out of Mania with the belt. And then Diesel beats Owen for the belt, either on Raw or at the next pay-per-view, and then you start Diesel's run. Because Diesel would have beaten Shawn at Mania in their grudge match, setting him up as a number one contender. That might be the way to go. I don't know. I don't know. It was kind of a messy situation that, kind of turned into the certain guys that they wanted to get the belt, and then doing a shock title change with Backlund and all this other stuff. And I loved heel Bob Backlund. Honestly, if it were up to me, I would just run with Backlund all the way to Mania because I loved him. I love that heel character so much. But I don't know. Again, it's kind of a messy situation. All right. And then I don't think I've ever heard you talk about All Japan Pro Wrestling in the 1990s. I didn't watch it in the 90s. I've seen bits and pieces here and there, but I don't have a strong knowledge of All Japan from the 1990s. I've heard great things. I've heard it get a lot of praise. But again, not something that I'm overly familiar with. All right. And final question. How's it feel seeing wrestling take over America with WWE Hall of Famer Donald Trump as president and Linda McMahon as the head of Department of Education? It's a fun ride, let me tell you. If you can't laugh at it, then what are we doing here? But it is what it is. So yeah, that concludes the Q&A. Thank you everybody for submitting your questions, and be sure to submit more questions for a future video. You can use the email address down below, and I will be back next week. I have other plans for videos. I want to get back into doing top 10s. We just recently had the 20th anniversary of the passing of Eddie Guerrero, and I thought it'd be nice to kind of take a look back at Eddie's career, maybe do a top 10 match listing for him, and so that might be my next video. We will see. But I will be back next week with another one. Thank you everybody for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, hit the little bell icon so you get notified when I post new videos, and be on the lookout for more. I will be back next week, and I will see you all later.